Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Or whatever day of the week it is. Honestly, it all blurs into one big Wednesday anyway. My name's Chelsea, and welcome to this little video on a beginner's guide to feeling all the feels. And I posted another video just before this about why it's important to feel all your feelings. And I really just kind of wanted to articulate my thoughts a little bit more because guess what? I'm still new at this whole video posting thing and it's still messy, which I'm going to choose as being beautiful and not let it give me anxiety. We'll see how it goes. So to give you a little bit of background on why honestly I'm offering this video to all of you who might need to hear it today, is this was the journey that I started on, and learning to feel my feelings again was where I had to start. It had to go basic because 2 years ago, give or take, I had been completely numb, and I had chosen that, emotionally numb speaking. I was in denial of being in a toxic relationship that frankly wasn't good for either of us. There's no abuse, there was no malice, but we just brought out the worst in each other. And it got to that painful point, and I think for both of us. So I was in denial of that, and I was married to my now ex-husband, and couldn't really own up to the fact that maybe this just wasn't in either of our higher good, which I can now look back and admit with grace and continue on the process. But anyway, at that point in my life, I had just shut out all emotion, and I thought, honestly, it's pretty good in theory. Just okay, stop feeling the feelings. We're just going to keep powering through. We're gonna shove them in the closet and just deal with them. 30 years or so. Great in theory. But the drawback was, and this is a big why of how important it is to just buckle down and connect with your emotions on a continuous basis, is, I was not feeling the pain. I was not feeling the anxiety to the level that I was. I was not feeling that depression. But guys, I couldn't feel any joy either. I couldn't feel any connection. I couldn't feel any fulfillment. I was living in a black and white movie of my own life, if that makes sense. And because I was what might be considered a high-functioning empath, I just put all that focus on everything else external, which is another symptom of being numb, is you just focus on everything else. When I get this career, I'll be fulfilled. I just need to find the right fulfilling career. That's what I'm missing. You know what, here, let's not talk about me. Let's put all my shit aside. Let's put all of my shit aside and let's just focus on you. How do we fix you? Yes, perfect. I don't need this, you need this. That's really, I tried fixing my ex-husband, friends, clients. I just, bleh. And anybody who's ever tried to fix anybody in their life knows exactly how that went. I just did that on camera. Anywho, I finally enter, at this point, an intuitive healer who I met through the beauty business as a client. And she was an intuitive healer and a life coach who I absolutely adore and still see to this day, and cannot recommend coaching highly enough. It's like therapy for people who aren't working through things that, anyway, who are working through some things that might not be explained by just the science of psychology. Psychologists, also awesome. I recommend any kind of help, whatever works for you, whatever gives you peace, do it. So, enter this healer and this intuitive person who knew the value of emotions. And I said, okay, great. What career should I do? What job should I get? She said, well, how have you been feeling? I said, I haven't been feeling. I'm just gonna kind of park that and address it later. She said, and I cannot stress this enough, she said, you can't help anybody until you've faced your own emotions. You can't help anybody until you've helped yourself. which makes sense. I mean, you really can't plan a road trip with no gas in the car, can you? I don't know why that missed my logic circuits, but I think a lot of us do miss that. We all think if we could just find that external thing and find our value outside in the world, perfect, we don't have to look at ourselves. Yeah. You can imagine how I reacted to that. And she said, look, that's your next step, That's your next step, Chelsea. And if you want to take it, you're welcome. But if you don't, then it's not going to get any better. And here's the thing. I actually wrote notes because I want to stay on topic. I'm trying to organize things here, guys. And the thing that she had to explain to me was there's really no such thing as a bad emotion. Let that sink in for a sec. Sadness, fear, anger, rage, grudges, guilt, grief. All our emotions are messengers. They tell us what's going on in our relationship to the world around us. If you feel afraid, generally speaking, that is your body and your heart and your soul trying to tell you, pay attention to something. Now, if you're feeling anxiety, which is a prolonged sense of fear, it might mean that you're worrying about something in the future that actually hasn't happened or may not happen. But if you don't listen to your emotions when those are happening, how are you ever going to be able to make a clear decision? A lot of us think it's the brain that makes the decision. No. The brain is wonderful. The mind is, and I'm an overthinker. So I hear you when it sounds crazy, but our emotions were meant to drive us forward. Our minds and our thinking and our thoughts are meant to keep us safe. Our beautiful brain was evolved to look for lions and tigers and bears, oh my, in the woods and not get eaten. If something moved in the bushes, it was our brain's job to think, maybe that's not a bunny rabbit. Oh dear God, I'd better run. And we'd stay safe for another day. But in today's modern world, we really don't have great odds of being chased by a lion, tiger, or a bear. Unless you're camping, in which case that's on you. So now what happens is we've let our brains take over so much to the point that we ignore our emotions, which are telling us the truth. Our emotions are our connections to the truth. And whatever truth that might be. There's the truth out there, there's the truth for somebody else, there's the big capital T truth of the meaning of life, which none of us really has any idea of. But our emotions tell us our truth. If you can't listen to your emotions, you're never going to know your truth. And if you don't know your truth, then just about anyone can convince you of theirs, which may not be in your best interest. So, I still went off on a tangent, but so that's the benefit of taking that brave leap to connect to your emotions. And also, the thing is, when you ignore your emotions, like I said, they're messengers. They're not you. If you are feeling sad, it doesn't mean you're a sad person. It just means you're feeling sad at the moment. Also, likewise, if you're feeling happy, it doesn't mean that feeling's going to last forever, which means that you should savor it all the more because it could pass. And will. All emotions do. So emotions are the messengers of the soul, I guess, if that doesn't sound too kooky, which you're hearing this from a girl with purple and blue hair. I think kooky's already implied. But emotions are the messengers. That said, they're like the Census Bureau of messengers. If you don't deal with them, they will just keep coming back and knocking at your door a little louder every time until finally they hunt you down while you're at the interview for your dream job and bust in on the office. Not literally, I hope. That's not an idea for anyone who works for the Census Bureau. But you get what I mean. If you don't pay attention to your emotions, they're gonna come out anyway. So you might as well deal with them in a loving way and in a peaceful way before they explode on you. And that was kind of what was happening to me when I decided that I would just numb myself to all emotion. They were still there, which led me to crying and sobbing and ugly crying again in that first session with my healer. Yeah, charming. Because basically what I had done is I had shoved all of my emotions into a closet, like the size of a big old awesome walk-in closet that you see in one of those, like, you know, $1 million home listings. I had a closet that size of emotions that I just refused to deal with because I didn't want to sit with them and acknowledge that I might have had some uncomfortable feelings. Instead, I wanted to focus on other people's feelings. I wanted to focus on, how can I help you feel better? Great, nope, I'm good, let's focus on you. So, with all that said, that was my journey, and that was the start of my journey. Now, here's the thing. Had I not squared up and just, I guess, had a good conversation with all the emotions that I was having and acknowledged them, I wouldn't be here, guys. I wouldn't have had the emotional freedom. I wouldn't have had the power to ask for an end to a relationship that was not serving me or him. I would not have had the emotional strength to leave a job that was toxic a week later. I would still be in the box that I had put myself in. So if you're feeling numb, but if you're also feeling trapped in a box, don't know what to do, feeling lost, feeling stuck, feeling anything, this is the best that I can offer you, is to first start with just feeling the feelings. And with that, getting into the practical stuff. So, first of all, step 1, be gentle on yourself. Prepare yourself. I'm going to tell you right now, if you had a closet full of emotions like mine, it's going to come out as if you'd stuffed that thing to the door. And the second you open that door, a lot of it will come tumbling out at you. Do not give up. So just prepare yourself that it's going to be messy at first. It's going to be uncomfortable. There will be all kinds of wacky, almost manic feeling emotions where you go from to super high to, oh my gosh, what is all the point? You're in for a roller coaster, but the roller coaster doesn't last. It's a very short one, I promise. And once you get the hang of it, it gets easier and easier and easier, and it becomes this consistent part of your daily life. So brace yourself, give yourself a little compassion, a little grace, and again, know that your emotions are not you. They will pass as soon as they've been properly addressed and as soon as they've been seen. It's like the werewolf in horror, like old school horror movies. Once you've seen the monster, it's really not all that scary. And your emotions, as uncomfortable as they are, cannot hurt you. And they are only there to help you if you let them. So give yourself a lot of slack and a lot of care. Step 2, prepare the people that you spend the most time with. And this is a biggie. I live alone currently, but when I started all this, I was married. And, you know, it's not as though you need any permission to work on your healing, to work on your ascension journey, to expand yourself, to do whatever calls to you. You don't need anyone's permission, not even mine. Not even some big giant guru. You don't need anyone's permission. That said, if you're living with somebody, anybody, kids, roommates, friends, spouses, even some family members that you might be very, very close to, parents, sisters, brothers, what have you, anyone that you're close to that you spend a lot of time with, let them know that you're about to embark on this journey. Because here's what's going to happen if you don't. You're going to start feeling the feelings. And they're going to go, holy God, this person has not erupted like this possibly ever, or as for years. Depending on how long you've been playing this game of shoving emotions in the closet, when they come forth, people are going to be surprised. So cut that right out. They still might be surprised at the extent of it. I don't know. Maybe you've got a really good poker face. And if you do, it's going to be an adjustment for the people around you too. So all I did was I started out by just telling my ex-husband, look, I have been feeling numb for quite a while, and it's not your fault. It's something that I did as a coping mechanism, and now I'm trying to fix it. So I'm working on healing myself, and while I'm doing that, I have to acknowledge a lot of feelings that I had repressed. So I might get a little weepy. I might get a little, I'll be pretty upfront if I'm angry. I'm gonna really try to be conscious of it, and I will absolutely do my 100% best to not take it out on you. Never take it out on the people that you're with, by the way. Your emotions are yours, especially when you're opening them back up after a few years. Work within you first, and then once you've gotten that clarity, then start seeing, okay, what about my external life is not fitting? But right now, just let your loved ones know, hey, I might be a little emotional. I might be very emotional. Please know that I'm okay. Please know that I'm just going through this as a part of my healing, as a part of, my wellness, as a part of my self-care. Bear with me, show me a little grace, and ask your loved ones for grace too. Ask your loved ones for the support that you need. I had to ask my ex, look, if I'm experiencing something, I just need you to hold me, pet my hair, and tell me it's going to be okay. Rinse and repeat until I stop. That is what I needed from him. Now, it was an unhealthy dynamic, so I didn't always get it. However, ask for what you need. That's the other big part of this whole journey, is learning to ask for what you need. So if you're like me and you need somebody to just hold you and say, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay, I'm not gonna try to fix this, but it's gonna be okay, then great, ask for that. If you're a person who needs to isolate, which sometimes I go into phases too, where I just need to go into my little cave for anywhere from a half hour to a couple weeks. Obviously I get up and I go to work and I do my job, but I come home and I just process. So if you need space away to process, ask for it. Say, hey, look, I'm gonna need some space over the next few days, and if I ask for it, please just give it to me and know that it has nothing to do with you and I'm not angry or upset with you. I think I've covered that base. Now, on to the good stuff. Start small. Step 3, start small. 10, 20 minutes at least. If you can go longer, all the better, because once you start processing these emotions, a lot of them just start pouring out. But start small. Give yourself a 10-minute minimum to just take some time, and if you do it verbally, which would include something like, just sitting in a quiet space, maybe putting your hand over your heart, maybe over your gut where you might feel the most tension, and just acknowledging what you're feeling right now. I feel stressed. I feel nervous, which actually I do get when I do these videos. And when you do that, emotions are kind of like the little eye goobers that you get, where if you look directly at it, it goes away and it shifts. I gotta work on my metaphors. But when you do look directly at an emotion, a lot of the time it tends to either go away completely, having been acknowledged that maybe that's all it needed, or it will shift into a different form of, maybe you go from, I feel angry, I feel betrayed, I feel hurt, I feel disappointment. And all of a sudden you kind of start getting to the deeper root of things, which is even better. So if that starts happening, run with it and just, again, allow yourself that freedom and that compassion to really sit and get to know yourself. Or journaling. Journaling is awesome. I'm huge on writing because it's something that's a part of me. So a lot of times I have to write to think and I have to write to process. So if you do that, great. Set aside that time for you maybe when the kids are in bed, maybe when your husband's at work or your wife is at work, or maybe even just ask like, hey, little do not disturb sign on the door, please don't bug me unless the house is on fire. And then once you've dealt with the fire, take some time, journal about that. Step 4, start practicing in real time. This is all great in a vacuum. If we could all just sit on a mountain all day and say, I'm feeling peaceful. No, I'm still feeling peaceful. Yes, I am at peace. It would be great, but it's not. Real life is messy, and COVID life, which I hate using the term, but it is a reality of our existence. We're in an interesting paradigm and an interesting soup bowl right now. So things are going to trigger us throughout the day, and that's just going to happen. And when we get triggered, sometimes it's not even the actual incident. It's a trigger that's bringing up all of that buried shit. So, with that said, practice. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, and it is perfectly okay to curse. I have never not condoned that. But feel the anger. Tell yourself, I feel angry right now. Yeah, I feel really angry. I feel really disrespected. As does my cat, who I'm ignoring. My cat feels ignored, and he's letting me know. So, practice in real time, and no, don't go off on your boss. If you're feeling triggered at them, this is not the time to say, I feel angry because you're being a jerk. You gotta tone that down. But do acknowledge it to yourself, mentally. Now, that leads me into step 5. Learn to practice being upfront with others in a calm way and in a non-charged way. So that's especially big for those of you who are in relationships, who are in co-living situations, who have kids, who have friends, who have family. Pretty much all of us, really. Learn to be upfront about it. And if somebody does trigger you, it's probably one of the hardest steps, because for a lot of us who are very energetically aware, and a lot of us sensitive souls, it is really, really hard to confront somebody and say they've hurt us. But it's a huge step. It is such a huge step. And the other thing is, you gotta let go of the idea that they may respond the way you want. Ideally, if they have your best interest at heart and they're a healthy, reasonably stable human being, they might say, oh gosh, I didn't know I hurt you. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. And you guys might actually be able to better your communication. That would be fantastic. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way. But it's still so very important for your own authenticity. If the time is appropriate, again, I would not recommend telling your boss that they've pissed you off by being an overbearing jerk. No. But if you're in a serious relationship with anybody, again, parents, siblings, kids, spouses, and you've deemed it important enough to communicate, and you think that this communication will help better your relationship, do it. Say to your spouse, hey, I was feeling a little bit hurt that you didn't call me before you came home. Or, hey, I'm feeling a little bit frustrated that you didn't do the dishes when I asked you to. And you don't have to make it a fight. That's the thing. Do not make this a fight right now. Do not get wrapped up in your emotions. All we're trying to do is see and acknowledge them. And if it leads to a discussion, please have that discussion, and try to remember your emotions are passing and your emotions are not you, but they are messengers of what you need. So use that kind of with your best judgment of whether it's worth starting a potential argument, whether it's worth any potential reprimanding. But even then, admit it to yourself first. And be honest with yourself, even if you can't be upfront in that situation. But do try to practice and just say, hey, I am feeling this way. Because a lot of our relationship issues, especially, again, empathic people, We love taking care of other people's emotions. And we love making people forget that we have them. So it's very, very important, because your partner might actually be dying to know what's going on in your world. And you might not be letting them, and in which case you're robbing them of something beautiful that they could help you with. This could actually turn out to be something really great for you guys. Again, as long as you keep a cool head and don't let it make you think that this is you. Now, 6, set aside time for the biggies. You know, you might be able to go through the day and go, yeah, I feel frustrated. Yeah, I feel happy. Yeah, I feel okay. You might, and that's good. And that's where we start. As you go deeper and as you start digging into that closet and you start throwing stuff out, there's some biggies that are going to come up. It's just a fact. We are all humans. We all have baggage. And when that baggage happens, now it might get triggered by somebody leaving their underwear on the floor. It might get triggered by your boss at work. And you may not be able to, in that moment, have the cry fest that you need in order to really see it and get it out. But schedule time for yourself to come back and revisit it. If you have to get through the workday, totally good, please do. But do schedule, even if it's just 10 minutes in the car of absolute ugly crying, or, you know, blasting some metal and just screaming your lungs out. Schedule that time. Make that time a priority once you have the ability to do it. Make it that day. Don't go, okay, well, Chelsea said to schedule time, and never schedule time. That's what I did. I just always said I'd put it off till later, and that meant 30 years later. Don't do that. And step 7. Now that you're seeing your emotions, now that you are starting to put faces to the monsters, learn to love and thank them. It's like we all have this little tiny child in us. And it's a child that we have, for the most part, shoved to the side and never acknowledged. And that's really all those uncomfortable emotions are, is sadness and hurt and anger at not being cared for, which is, it's how we've been conditioned. We've been very conditioned to ignore our weaknesses and ignore our bad emotions and just focus on being happy all the time. But that little child is still in there, and it's still a part of you saying, love me, see me, just hold me. Like I was saying, hold me and tell me it's going to be okay until I'm good. And that's what all of us have inside of us. So learn to treat yourself like that child. If some kid came up to you in the park and said, I feel scared, would you say, shut up, you've got deadline in 20 minutes, you just got to get this done, don't worry about it, just be happy? No. You'd hug that little kid. You'd say, okay, honey, what's scaring you? Okay. And ideally, you'd listen to that child and let it cry, no matter how illogical it sounded, and just hold it and tell it it's going to be okay, and you can get through this. And that's what you need to be able to do for your own inner child and for yourself. And that's really what the practice of learning to face your emotions is really learning to love those parts of you that have not been shown love in probably quite a while. And in doing so, you're going to free that little kid. And that little kid's going to say, oh, yeah, okay, you're right. I am okay. And that just undoes the knot. And it lifts a little weight off of your shoulders and clears out your emotional closet just a little bit more. And when you start doing that, when you really start embracing it, when you really start to love, and I don't mean like say, okay, I love you so you'll go away. I mean really, even if you don't enjoy that feeling, thank it for being there. It means you're human. It means you're not a raving sociopath who's going to go on a murdering spree. If you have sadness, if you have fear, if you have self-doubt, if you have joy, if you have, you know, I don't know, every other emotion that I can't list right now. If you have those, it means you're human. And thank those emotions, because they're telling you some good stuff. They're telling you when you've got a bad feeling about a business deal. They're telling you when this could be a really good person to meet. They're telling you when, you know, when to call your friend or family member, even if you have no logical reason to, and maybe that friend or family member really needed to hear from you that day. You are cutting off so much magic if you are resisting loving those beautiful emotions that you have. And yeah, I'm not gonna say it sucks, but it's gonna get challenging at first. And it still gets challenging on a day-to-day basis, depending on what it is. There are days that I really don't want to feel sad, but there it is. And I've either got to schedule time or I've got to admit I'm feeling sad today. And that's, evidently, that just needed to be seen. So have a little grace for yourself and enjoy this process. And I promise you, if you do, there's so much good stuff coming up. Bye, guys. Love you.